To spirit, if there's anything I've learned over the past decade of developing the ability to communicate with those who've passed, it's that we humans don't do this. It's the soul, and the soul, all of us are connected as the one expression of the one light. That's what one comes to know when you have a near-death experience or a spiritually transformative experience, an out-of-body experience, whatever you want to call it, whatever helps you to come to know you are the light in expression is such a gift. I always use slides when I speak to the IANDS group, and today is going to be no different because I love to back up what I'm sharing with all of you with pictures that share the evidence. And so instead of just looking at me talking, give me a second here to pull up my screen and open it up here. There we go. I'm starting with this screen because I want to dedicate today's talk to my mom. Those who knew her as Ruthie. That's her in the middle there with my husband Ty and I. Today is Mom's angel date. It was 2 years ago today that she crossed to the other side. And I want to tell all of you that I haven't shed a single tear. In fact, I've just been filled with beautiful memories of my mom because of what I know. And it's what I hope to impart to all of you, knowing beyond a doubt that there is more than this life. So in honor of Mom, let's move on. It was just this week that my guest on my weekly radio show was this woman here, Lynn Russell. And Lynn has researched over 2,500 near-death experiences. And as she shared them on my show, I said to her, well, this is fantastic because you are confirming everything that I know. So Lynn has read about these. Many of you have had these kinds of experiences yourself. And what I've learned has come not only from my own spiritually transformative experience, but from talking to those who didn't just have the near-death experience, they had the death experience and did not come back to physical form. So in other words, I spend my days talking to what many people would call dead people, but they are far from dead and gone. And that's my main message. But the message today for my talk is all about how we are connected by one big web. Those of you who follow my work know I talk about this web all the time, but today I'm going to be sharing just how interconnected the physical world and those in the non-physical world are. And I hope that it fills you with the wondrous, magical moments that I get when I have these beautiful occasions to interact with those who have passed and show us just how connected we are. Now, this term that you see on the screen here, extended cognition, this came up when I read an account, about half a year ago, about spiders when they, what do they do with their webs? Spin their webs. Do you know that scientists have found that the web is actually an extension of the spider and that they can tension individual strands to learn things about their environment. And that's how they know when a bug lands in the web, exactly where it is on the web, but they can tell whether it's a leaf or something to go and investigate. Well, when we expand our awareness beyond the physical senses, we can actually use intention to do the same as the spiders and tension the strands, even though we can't see them, that connect us with each other. And that's what we do when we connect with our loved ones. We expand our web of awareness and put out a call. Mom, love to hear from you today on this special day. And tension, that cord that goes straight from the heart. So who is it you want to connect with? Know that you're part of a web and it's connected at the heart. So I love this phrase by Chief Seattle that we haven't woven the web of life. We are just one thread within it. And now we're going to move on. I'm going to show you just how connected we all are. Many of you have read my book, Wolf's Message. In fact, I get emails almost daily from people who read the book and say, all these synchronicities that have to do with the book came up when I was reading about Wolf, who you see here. Wolf is actually a young man named Mike Passakarnas. And I'll just tell you a few things about his story. He was killed just like my stepdaughter, Susan, by a lightning strike. Now look at that t-shirt he's wearing. The day before he was killed, he cut out that lightning bolt on his favorite t-shirt and he tacked it to the wall in his apartment. Right across the wall from that lightning bolt t-shirt was this poem that you see circled here. He wrote that the day before he passed. And you can see it says, "The time has come to allow the light of nature to free my soul." The book Wolf's Message goes into all kinds of evidence about how Wolf came back from the other side through me to share all kinds of evidence to explain how it is that a young man in physical form could know that he was going to be struck by lightning the next day, that it was time for him to leave. And it's because we are both human and souls. So Wolf's Message in a nutshell boils down into three main principles. Roberta, when she introduced me, said that I teach a way of living called the awakened way. And really what it is Wolf's message. In short, the first principle is to understand that you, all of us, are beautiful lights existing in multiple realities at once. This phrase used to say you're a beautiful soul living in multiple realities, but even to say we're a soul limits us, whereas light is limitless. And we, by shifting our focus, which I'll talk about later, can experience these different realities. The second principle of the awakened way is you're part of one big web connecting all that is. And of course, that's what today's talk is all about. This is a screenshot of the homepage of one of my favorite organizations. IANDS and HPH, Helping Parents Heal, are my two organizations that I just feel are doing such good work for helping people to understand that we really are part of something so much more than these physical bodies. Helping Parents Heal is all about helping those who have children across the veil. And if there's one thing that has taught me about the web, it's the way our children who have passed show us that they are together across the veil and still together with us here. So I'm going to take one child and tell his story that should leave no doubt in your mind that what I just said is truth. These are the two affiliate leaders of the Tampa chapter of Helping Parents Heal. And I went to speak to the group in November 2016, as you see right here. And I was just going to give a talk about mediumship, but I felt that it would not be doing a service to everybody if I didn't bring it through a few souls from across the veil. At that time, 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was not at all comfortable standing in front of a group doing gallery readings. I love my one-on-one readings, but sitting there that day, I said, let's just give it a go. And as uncomfortable as I was, brought through about 5 souls. I was getting ready to wrap up the gallery reading when all of a sudden I was drawn to this couple who you see here. This is Brooke and Jordan Shearer. They were sitting off to the side, very withdrawn. I had no idea it was their very first Helping Parents Heal meeting, but I was drawn to them because I suddenly became aware of the presence of a very young boy. And I said, you have a son who crossed. He's showing up as about 10 years old, and he shows me that he passed in a car accident and that both of you were in the car with him. Well, let me tell you, this couple, if they were tense before, they suddenly grew even more tense because it turns out only 10 weeks earlier, their 10-year-old son, Logan, had passed in the car accident exactly as he showed me. His little sister was also in the car, but he was the only one who passed. So this couple, as you can see in this picture, they were raw with grief. They didn't know there was a greater reality. They had come to this Tampa meeting of Helping Parents Heal out of hope, just grasping at straws that there was something more. And all of a sudden, here's their young son there, telling exactly how he passed. A few weeks before, they had been on vacation, and Brooke was standing by a river fishing and saying, Logan would have loved being here. This is just like that movie, and a river runs through it. So this is one of those beautiful examples of those across the veil showing us that they're with us here and now, and they know even what's in our thoughts. So never doubt that for a minute. He also showed me the family picture, and he said, there are 3 kids in our family. And that's when they looked at me and shook their heads and said, no, there are only 2 of us. And there will only ever be 2 children, sorry. And there will only ever be 2 kids because Brooke had her tubes tied years ago. Well, I checked again and I said, well, I guess I'm just wrong, but he's showing me a family of 5. But his mom said, you know, it's kind of funny because this is his sister shown here, and that's a picture of Logan. She said, just 2 weeks after Logan passed, Mallory had a dream, that's their daughter's name, and in it, she saw a baby, and Logan let her hold the baby. So it was kind of funny that they brought that up, but we just kind of set it to the side because clearly it was just something that I misinterpreted. So you only get a short time to do a reading for someone when you read before a group. And I said, let me do a full reading. I want to really connect with your son. So we scheduled a time when I could meet them on the phone for a phone reading. And it was funny because Logan showed up right away and he thrust the flower up. He'd made this motion, if you can see me in the little thumbnail picture, going like this. And I said, you must have some memory of him holding a flower up for you like that. And his mom said, I don't remember that at all. And I said, well, it's just so significant. It was, I don't know, maybe a week after the reading when she sent me this photo and said, Suzanne, I completely forgot about this one. And that's exactly what he was showing me, just pushing that flower up. That's the way he greeted his mom in the reading. He let me feel his personality to a T, and he was just a confident little boy. And I said, he's standing here with his arms crossed, just looking as pleased as can be to be communicating with you now. And here's a photo that his parents sent me later, just to show that that's exactly how he was. All kinds of evidence came through that let them know that Logan is still around. But at the end, the reading was going so well that I said, Logan, let's pull out all the stops. Show me something current, another current event, so they know you really do know what's going on with the family. You're still part of the family. And I don't know if any of you remember from kindergarten when we used to make those little construction paper circles. You'd take strips of paper and make a chain with them. Logan showed me one of those. He said, this is definitely a current event and it has to do with my sister. Well, look at this picture. Here is the paper chain his sister made the night before the reading with his name on it. What does that tell you? That tells you that Logan was right there as she was making it and appreciates the fact that she was thinking about him and made that in his honor. So that's just so cool. Well, fast forward now to the Helping Parents Heal conference, the very first one they held, April of 2018. So we started in 2016 in Tampa. Then I did the reading. I'm not sure what date it was, but now we're up to 2018. And I got to talk to Brooke and Jordan. You can see they're smiling now because there's no doubt in their mind that Logan is part of their journey. And as we were talking, Logan dropped in on us. That happens to mediums sometimes when you're not doing a real actual one-on-one reading, but because you're with their loved ones, that person in spirit is present, of course. And Logan said to me, my dog digging in the sand. He showed me a dog digging in the sand. And his parents said, as you can see on the screen, our dog never does that. Well, I checked in with Logan. It's like Roberta said, I'm listening for that inner guidance. And I said, it's crazy. He's right. That is the only thing I'm getting from him. Nothing else, just showing me this dog digging in the sand. Okay, well, you ready for this one? Fast forward now from the conference. It was April. On the calendar here, June 2nd of the same year. So 2 months later, it's Logan's birthday. I get an email from Brooke. She's incredulous. To celebrate Logan's birthday, now he's been gone 2 years now, they went to Florida, back to the beach where he loved to go. They're standing on the beach on his birthday, and Brooke gets a text from their dog sitter. They didn't want to take the dog to Florida. So the friend was dog sitting the dog and texted them, having no idea what had happened 2 months ago when Logan dropped in on us, texted a video. Look at your dog Dash. Look at, isn't he so cute? He's in the sandbox in the back of my yard digging sand. This is a screenshot of an actual video where the dog is doing exactly what Logan showed me 2 months earlier. Talk about a birthday present. So how does that work? It works because everything is consciousness. Somehow Logan knew what was going to happen, knew his parents were going to go to Florida, because Logan is expression of source, of consciousness, and it all came together like that. What a fantastic birthday present. So now you're going to really see this web. Now that you know some of the main players in this web I'm describing, fast forward again. Brooke and Jordan have come so far in their healing journey that now they became affiliate leaders of their own chapter in Indianapolis of helping parents heal. They invited me to speak to the group, but I wasn't traveling to Indianapolis, so we used Zoom. So I get on Zoom and I said, we're going to bring through a few of your kids for the members who were gathered. In this case, everybody was in one place. They were having an in-person meeting. They set up a computer, and I could see them gathered before me, and they could see me on the screen. Well, the first person who dropped in on us was Logan, which was perfect. It was his way of setting the stage, of saying, I've got this in charge from the other side. And he just opened up that greater reality where all the kids across the veil were meeting. And this is my point of the web. We have been told multiple times that when parents have a meeting of helping parents heal, their kids are meeting at the same time. So I'm sure it doesn't just apply to helping parents heal, but any support group and any groups that we're part of, we have our equivalent soul families across the veil. So Logan came in, and I said to his parents on the screen there, well, Logan's showing me some children's playing blocks, and they had no memory of Logan having blocks. Then I said, well, he's showing me playing football with a child, like dad playing football with a child. And he said, well, I did that with Logan. And I said, but this is something current. He's talking current events. And his dad said, no, I don't know what that is. And then Logan showed me a rabbit. And I said, did you guys just get a rabbit, or did he have a rabbit? And they said, Suzanne, this just isn't making sense to us. But we knew from that incident with the dog digging that I can trust what Logan shows me. But 3 no's in a row is kind of hard for a medium to take. But I knew what he was showing me, and I said, just remember the children's blocks, dad playing football with a child, and the rabbit. And they said, okay. And then Logan says, I want to bring in a friend to help someone else out in the group. Next thing you know, I'm aware of a young man. And this is him here. This is a picture of Jack. This young man showed up from the other side, and he showed me that he had passed from a drug overdose. Right away, I could feel his personality, kind of irreverent, but fun-loving, quirky. And all of a sudden, this couple pulled their chairs right to the center of the screen. They said, that's our son. That's our son. It's Jack. And he passed from a drug overdose, and you're describing him perfectly. And I said, well, he's showing me a knitted ski cap that he had that you would recognize. Do they recognize it? Here's a picture of him acting quite quirky and irreverent, standing in the middle of a stream. So there's Jack, and his parents were blown away. Turns out his brother was off to the side in that meeting, sobbing. This was their first time to hear from Jack across the veil, and they could not deny it was him, especially when he continued to give us evidence, including, I said, he's sitting here playing a guitar, and his brother has that guitar now, and his brother's crying even harder. His dad went from wanting to believe to knowing that their son is still right here with him. In the middle of that, somebody shouted out from across the veil to me what sounded like the name Skylar, and showed me drumming. Well, all of a sudden, this other woman off screen during that meeting of Helping Parents Heal in Indianapolis, comes running onto the screen. She goes, "That's my son. It's my son. It's not Skylar. He's Tyler." And he was a drummer. And I tuned in and I said, "All right, this is your son, and he's telling me he passed the same way Jack did." And Mom confirmed that her son had also passed from a drug overdose and was a drummer. Tyler went on to give me a bunch of information about himself and his life that validated. We had both Jack and Tyler here, but what was so amazing during this reading is these two boys showed me they were in a band across the veil, playing their music that they love so much together. But what was really cool is they showed that they were together across there, and all of the kids in the meeting were together. So this is where I really came to understand the web. And I hope that it brings a lot of you comfort to know that when you have connections here, just like I said, those across the veil get to know each other, even though these two young men had never known each other when here in person, in physical form. So look at that. We have Logan, Tyler, Jack, and the rest of the members of the group. Now, you remember what came up? I got 3 no's in a row. That Mom and Dad said, we don't know anything about the children's blocks, throwing a football to a child, or the rabbit. I get an email from Brooke after the reading. Turns out there was something she didn't want to say on camera. She said, "Suzanne, we're trying to get pregnant, but nobody knows that yet." She'd had her tubes tied, but they were trying in vitro fertilization. I said, "Nobody knows? That's what you think." Put the clues together. Logan knew because he has the bigger picture. And I said, don't want to get your hopes up, but he's given you a big thumbs up. And oh, by the way, remember what Logan said the very first time years earlier when he came through in that meeting. All right. So I hope this is comforting to all of you to know those across the veil absolutely know what's going on in your life. How could they not when we are all expressions of one source? We are these light beings in physical form just for a little while, but that's what light does. And light is indivisible. So remember I showed you Wolf. Talk about knowing what's going on. Moss Creek is the community where I live now. And one day I was pulling into the entrance of Moss Creek. I was going to my friends Irene and Tony's house, where I'm actually broadcasting from today while I visit home for a while. Ty and I have been on the road for several months, and I came back and was reminded of this time when we were going to meet with Mike Passacarnis, Wolf's parents, Mike Sr. and his wife, Beth, who is Wolf's stepmother. As I pulled into the Moss Creek entrance, because Mike and Beth were arriving shortly, all of a sudden, Wolf was in the car with me. I said, Ty, Wolf is here. He knows we're getting together with Mike and Beth. Do you see the web? And all of a sudden, Wolf showed me a tire making wobbling motions and sounding like it was out of balance. And I said, what are you showing me? And Wolf said, there's a screw in my parents' tire. I looked at Ty and I said, I love this. I don't even ask for a current event, and he's showing me something so that his parents will know that he's right here with them. So we got to Irene's house. Mike and Beth showed up minutes later. Imagine this is how I greeted them. Instead of, hey, good to see you guys, I walked up to them and I said, Wolf says there's a screw in your tire. And I looked to the side of the driveway where the truck was parked, and without pause, looked down and said, and there it is right now. I thought we might have to go check all 4 tires. I thought they might have to pull forward in case the tire was on top of the screw. No, it was right there in plain sight. How do things like this happen? Because the soul doesn't have to use physical eyes. It knows and sees with the eyes of the soul. I just love that. So they're there for big events and small events. Well, speaking of big events, August 2019. Now we're fast forwarding another year in the life of Logan's family. Suddenly, I haven't talked to Brooke and Jordan in months and months. I did know that she did get pregnant, but I had completely forgotten what month it was. But here we are in August of 2019, and Logan drops in on me. I said, Logan, what are you doing here out of the blue? Oh my gosh, the baby. I emailed Brooke and I said, Logan says it's time for the baby. What's happening? And here's her email back on that day. Just found out I'm staying at the hospital and we are having a baby today. I'm in awe of your email this morning and the fact that it is happening today. Not that I don't trust Logan, Spirit, or you, but holy cow. On the very day. And here is little Mila, the 5th member of the family that Logan foresaw even when everybody else thought it was an impossibility. Do you see the web? Do you see how connected we all are? Oh, I love this life. So let's move on. I'm going to show you another web of connections. This one might take a little bit of concentration on your part to follow with me, but this one blew me out of the water. I went to speak at the Summit Scottsdale conference last year. Every time it seemed that I passed through the lobby, I kept seeing this woman that you see here on the right side of the screen. This is Lisa Lanuski. I knew Lisa from having done a reading for her, but I believe it was over the phone. In fact, on the readings page of my website, I give a letter about not expecting to hear certain things. It was from Lisa because she writes and admits she was the worst sitter or client ever. All she wanted was to hear one specific thing from her daughter, and she didn't hear anything else I said. And she allowed me to publish that letter to show people to let those in spirit get through what they can get through. Well, I was so pleased to see Lisa at that conference, but I kept seeing her over and over and over again. By Sunday of the conference, I was pretty tired. I actually had 4 events at the conference. I had given 3 of them. I had 1 more to go. I woke up at 6 a.m. of the final day of the conference with a big workshop that afternoon and had the craziest thought. I thought, boy, I'd love to give a reading to somebody today. Now, I have to tell you, I normally don't do any readings at conferences because they're a little bit high energy and draining, and I need high energy to do a reading. Well, now I know why I had that thought, because lying there in bed, 6 a.m., here comes Amber, shown here in the photo. This is Lisa and Lou Lanuski's daughter. She was the one that put the thought in my head, you need to do a reading today. And I thought, no wonder I've been snagged and seeing Lisa so many times today. Well, I didn't have Lisa's phone number, but I went on Gmail and did a search and I found her email address. This is a screenshot from the email that I sent. You can see the time, 06:17. That's Navy talk for 6:17 a.m. And I said, hey, Lisa, I think we were just set up by Amber. Do you want to see if we can talk to her this morning? It will be my gift to both of you, to all of you. So in other words, I'm saying, Lisa, can you imagine Lisa getting this email from a medium saying, hey, your daughter's here talking to me. You want to talk to her? I know from having my own stepdaughter across the veil, if I got an email like that from a medium, I'd be all over it. But I waited a few minutes. I didn't hear anything. But meanwhile, I didn't get anything back by email. I hear lots from Amber, and I pick up my pen and paper that I always have by my side when I'm in bed, and I start writing down everything that's Amber saying. And she even said, why do you think I kept making you notice my mom? Well, I suddenly realized, wait, if I ever did a reading for Lisa, which I did, then my assistant Lynette will have her phone number. So I got my phone number. I got the phone number from Lynette, even though it was early in the morning. It wasn't quite so early on the East Coast where Lynette was. And now here's a copy of the text, now that I had Lisa's phone number, that I sent, and it's now 6:38. I've had about 20 minutes or so to talk to Amber. So now I text Lisa, good morning, Lisa. This is Suzanne Giesemann. Your daughter will not let me go back to sleep this morning. Can you believe that? When would you like to talk to her? I sent it kind of playfully like this, knowing how much I would love to get a text like that. Are you ready to see the web Look at the text I got back from Lisa. Here's my part at the top. When would you like to talk to her? And Lisa says, oh my gosh, she's talking to Cheryl too. What should I do? I read that and I thought, what does she mean? She's talking, her daughter Amber is talking to someone else right now? And who is Cheryl? So I answered back, you mean right now? Cheryl who? And Lisa wrote back, Cheryl Paige. Now, I couldn't believe this. Cheryl Paige was a student in one of my mediumship classes. I had not thought of Cheryl in several months. Yet when I showed up at the hotel, there was a card for me in the mail that someone brought to me because I'd been traveling around. Here's the card that I had just gotten from Cheryl. And Cheryl and I are both very much into sacred geometry. This is a picture of the carpet in the hotel room. The night before, when I saw that carpet, I thought of Cheryl Paige. So in 24 hours, I had thought of Cheryl Paige for 2 reasons. She's shown here. And now, for some reason, this spirit, Amber, is talking to Cheryl. I couldn't quite figure that out. So I texted Lisa back and I said, how have you two connected in the past? In other words, how have you and Cheryl connected? And she says, Scott, that's Cheryl's boyfriend, came in as an interloper in my reading with you last year. And I said, oh my gosh, I completely forgot that. So I hope you're following me. The web gets kind of tangled, but let's show you how Cheryl and Amber and Scott and Lisa are all connected. Scott is in the spirit world. I brought him through for Cheryl several years earlier. Scott goes by the nickname Froggy, okay? July 7th, a year earlier, is when I brought through Amber for her mom and dad in that phone reading, July 7th. In the middle of that reading, I said, I'm seeing frogs everywhere. This is something that your daughter's showing me. Did she have a thing for frogs? Did she collect frog, little porcelain frog things? And her mom and dad said, no, there is no frog connection with our daughter. And that's when, as a medium, when you know what you're seeing, you learn to say, well, just remember it came up. Kind of like the dog digging in the sand, right? Well, that was on a Saturday, July 7th. July 9th, on a Monday, I called Cheryl Paige because I needed the phone number of a mutual friend. And Cheryl gave me the phone number and she said, well, Suzanne, I got to tell you, I got through Froggy's angel date. And suddenly I said, what do you mean? And she said, July 7th was Scott's angel date, the date he passed to the other side. On July 6th, I sent out a request to him and I said, hey, Froggy, maybe you can get a message to me that you're around on your angel date through Suzanne Giesemann. Put the dates together. July 7th was the date I did the reading for Amber's parents, and the frogs showed up. The parents couldn't take it. I emailed Lou and Lisa and I said, hey, remember the frogs? Don't worry about that. It wasn't Amber. You had an interloper in your reading. It was this woman, Cheryl Paige's boyfriend. She'd asked him to get a message through, and he did it when I was in an expanded state of consciousness, which is when those in spirit can most easily get through to us. Little did I know that because of that connection, Lisa Lanuski looked up Cheryl Paige and became friends with Cheryl on Facebook. All right? Meanwhile, Cheryl is studying mediumship with me and became a pretty darn good medium. She's still doing readings. So I thought, this is just crazy. And I said to Lisa, well, I'm still in bed. Just tell me when you want to get together later. I don't have anything until my workshop. We set up a time, 10 o'clock, for her to come to my hotel room, and we were going to bring through Amber. Well, meanwhile, I got out of bed, got dressed, and sat with my guides as I do every morning. I know that many of you receive the Daily Way emails or read my messages from my guide, Sanaya, that I put on Facebook or my website each day. And that day's message is shown here. And it had a web, a spider's web, because the message the guides gave me was how connected all of us are. I also got another message from them that day that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because the guides were suddenly speaking in very religious terms. I'll share that with you later, but it came to light later. At the time, it didn't make sense. So I texted Cheryl Paige when I finished meditation. As you can see here, the screenshot, I said, "Can you talk? Lisa's daughter, Amber, dropped in on me within minutes of dropping in on you." I had completely forgotten the Froggy connection. I had never before heard of a spirit talking to two different people, two different mediums at the same time, especially a drop-in, not during a reading, an unexpected drop-in. So Cheryl said, "Sure, let's talk." So I dialed her, and normally I answer the phone and say, "Hey, Cheryl, how you doing?" or "Hello," or something. But for some reason, and anytime I say for some reason, there's a big reason, she picked up the phone laughing. And I said the very first words out of my mouth, "This is an amazing day." Cheryl started laughing even more, and she explained to me that she had been sitting and was going to go through some of her old journals where she keeps notes of all of the teachings and things she's learning on her mediumship journey, when all of a sudden Amber dropped in on her that morning. She had never met Amber, but she'd seen her picture on Facebook. And she said, "Amber, I learned from Suzanne Giesemann that when you get a drop-in, you ask for evidence. Since I don't know you, give me evidence that this is you." And how Cheryl gets her evidence is she is drawn to a book, opens it to a page, and always finds the evidence right there. So having asked Amber for a sign, she told me she turned to this stack of journals and pulled out journal number 7, opened it at random, looking for evidence. "Amber, is this you? Are you ready for this?" This is a screenshot of the journal page of number 7 journal out of at least 10. It starts with "amazing day," which is how I answered the phone. But look at what it says. I asked Scott to send a sign via Suzanne Giesemann, and today a woman she did a reading for on July 7th on Scott's Angelversary sent frogs hopping through Lisa Lanuski's reading. This is the journal entry of the very day when her boyfriend Froggy connected across the web through people he didn't even know, and now we're totally connected in the future. This just blows my mind. And then Cheryl says, "And look what's on the facing page of that journal entry. It's teaching from you, Suzanne, that says when somebody drops in on you from the spirit world, ask for evidence." So at 10 o'clock, Lisa shows up at my hotel room, and Amber is right there. She's saying, "Talk to my mom about the mascara." The one photo that Lisa had of her daughter on her phone right there with her was this one doing the mascara. But I said, "No, Lisa, it's more than that. She's pointing at you and she's laughing about you doing mascara." And her mom said, "I have not worn mascara for years, but I've been trying to lengthen my lashes, and today I put mascara on for the first time." So right there's your current event evidence. There was so much more. Lisa was reminding me of how she passed. She had messages for her family, but the one message for her mom was, "Mom, you must keep moving forward. There is no turning back." A beautiful message for all of us. Remember this message. You must keep moving forward. There's no turning back. After this session with Lisa and Amber, I called Cheryl Paige back just to talk to her about the wonder of this connection. And Cheryl says, "Suzanne, it's really cool. Amber came with a message for her mom." Now, at this point, Cheryl has no idea what has come up in the reading for Lisa just then. But Cheryl said, "After we talked, I was led to pull out another book of mine, and I opened it up, and this is the message that Lisa has for her mom." Look at this. Those who have come to the crossroads, for those who've come to the crossroads, there is no turning back and nothing to go back to. We must keep fiercely moving ahead into the unknown. Both of us getting the same message, but through different ways. This is how consciousness works through you and through all of us. I hope that this just opens your mind to the limitless possibilities that we as expressions of consciousness have. At that time, I hang up the phone with Cheryl. My mind is spinning. And Sanaya said, Sanaya being my guide, gifts abound when you see with the eyes of the soul. A message for all of us. They said to me, take a break now, go work out. So they sent me to the gym. I go to the gym, my head is still spinning. I'm sitting on this machine doing bicep curls. I look at the mirror and all of a sudden my guide said, take note. I had to find somebody in the gym and borrow their phone to take a picture. I didn't take my phone with me. I was like a crazy woman. Quick, can I borrow your phone? And took this picture. As silly as this picture is, this is what I saw. This is me taking my photo in the mirror. And the guide said, this is like all of you. What is in your immediate face is the solid part of you. So you can see the physical side. But look behind is another image, a little bit less solid. That would represent the soul. And behind it is another image of the self. And it's getting more nebulous. And back it goes. We are multidimensional beings, kind of like the Russian nested dolls, right? And the teaching is, because we exist on multiple levels at the same time, always, we get to choose. What is the point of view through which you wish to see life? The limited human version or the bigger picture, like those across the veil have when they drop in on us. We can throw the circle of our view around all points of view and learn through processes such as meditation and practicing presence to expand our awareness and tap into things so much more than we know. We have guides who will help us. And my guide, Sanaya, I told you that morning, they gave me a message that didn't sound like them. It was actually quite religious sounding. They said, and this is to all of us, you can be one with Source and yet go off on your little journeys. That's what we're all doing in physical form, having journeys of the soul. And they said, like the proverbial prodigal sons, this awareness is the gift of the Father. And I thought, why are they talking about biblical stories, the prodigal son? And speaking of the gift of the Father, Sanaya doesn't talk like that. They talk about Source and the Force and infinite intelligence. Well, guess what I found out later that day when I shared this message in my workshop? That day, when all of this happened, was September 15th, 2019. A Catholic in the audience raised her hand and she said, Suzanne, there's this book called the Lectionary. People who give sermons use it to know what to talk about that day. And do you know what the sermon source for today, September 15th, 2019 is in the Lectionary? The Gospel of Luke 15, 1-32. Guess what it was? The story of the prodigal son.
Suzanne?
Wow. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. I need to ask you to wind up. We're
Don't
running
worry about it.
time. Yeah.
My team has got this in hand, and I have 3 minutes till Q&A, and I'm going to wrap this up within those 3 minutes. I promise you.
Okay, then we'll go on your time frame. We need to be to wind up a couple minutes before.
Yeah, we're coming down to this finish line here. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty. So the point again is it's just we're part of one big web. And if you listening to this are at any kind of crossroads, this conference is so full of wisdom about how to unlock the wisdom within you. The near-death experiences, everything that I've shared, show you that we're all part of one big web. So whether your mom is across the veil, your dad, your grandma, the love of your life, your brother, your child, your dear friends, there is only here in consciousness. And every thought you send out doesn't just go out from the head, it goes out from the heart. I invite you to check out this video on YouTube. Search for Suzanne Giesemann, Your Place in the Cosmos Explained, and you'll see a message that came from the guides about this vast web that connects all of us because we are consciousness. I shared with you the awakened way. The final and third principle is you find your way home through the heart. It's that connective strand, all the connective strands go back to the heart. So we don't just have extended cognition like the spiders. We have what I call extended cognizance, knowing through the soul. So the guides said that day, that message given when all of this web unfolded in my final 2 slides, Roberta, pay attention to the strands and pull the strings just like the spider does. In a way, Source is pulling your strings, yet you can act on your own should you choose. That's the gift of free will. Choose well. Why don't you? Make the choice to see how interconnected we all are and send each other love. That love is most certainly coming your way from the more deeply embedded levels of the web. And as they end all of their messages, they want us to understand we are all so loved. It can be no other way, because that's our source.